As I learned about mental illness and depression, and I learned it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't, I shouldn't be embarrassed about having it, or it wasn't like I was less than a man, I went and sought treatment for it.
But if you're feeling the negative pain that's going through your brain in terms of anger and seemingly mental issues, it's exactly the same thing. It's something that you want to pay attention to and say, I really should talk to somebody about this before it gets worse.
Yes, you are depressed. Yes, you can have those moments when there's that total darkness, there's no hope, there's no help around, but you can make it. Find a support mechanism. There are people in the community who can help you.
Hello, my name is Kim O'Reilly, and I'll be your host on the Caring Network. The Caring Network is a show about people's personal struggles with mental illness and about their journey, their hopes, their dreams, their challenges, their disappointments, and about their recovery. Join me as three men talk about their struggles with depression and what they did to recover.
Depression started probably my freshman year of high school after my parents divorced. I had a lot of friends. I was popular in school, but I always felt isolated, always felt alone. My friends would ask me to participate in different activities, parties, different school events, and I never really wanted to get involved. I was a loner, kept to myself. I didn't want to act that way, but I didn't have a choice. I felt like I didn't have a choice. Then I was introduced to drugs, introduced to marijuana and cocaine, and that seemed to help my depression. I could communicate better with people. I could go to the parties. I could go to the different school events. But now I had another problem. I had a chemical dependency, a drug addiction on top of depression. And this continued through high school. But I believe that depression and the substance abuse go hand in hand. In 2004, I saw treatment. I went through Pivot Ministries, and they dealt with the substance abuse problem. After I completed Pivot Ministries, I went for my mental health, and I was put on an antidepressant. And I currently take that antidepressant now. And I've been clean and sober and in recovery for the last 3 years. Depression wasn't talked about in my family. I come from an Italian family, old school Italian parents, and I would tell my dad I was feeling depressed, and he would just be like, well, get over it. Just shake it off, move on, and it's just not that easy when some days you can't even get off of the couch. But as I learned about mental illness and depression, and I learned it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't, I shouldn't be embarrassed about having it, or it wasn't like I was less than a man, I went and sought treatment for it. And I realized a lot of people have it and are dealing with it very successfully today. The depression comes back. It's not like I'm cured. There's times where it hits me, and I thank God for the support that I have in place now. I call people that are close to me that understand it. I exercise regularly. I attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and that's how I deal with my depression today. But it's not like the medicine cures it. It does come back, and it's something I have to deal with. I don't deal with it every day, but I do deal with it from time to time. The culture I grew up in was that men don't cry, men don't show weakness, and men are supposed to be that strong, firm pillar, which is true, but I've learned that real men do cry, real men do deal with emotional problems and depression, and I've met a lot of Italian people that do deal with depression, that are real strong Italian men, and they've helped me to overcome that pride and to really look at it and say, you know, it's okay. It's okay to have depression. The future looks great today. I'm so happy. I'm so excited about what I can accomplish. I'm 30 years old, and I have the whole world ahead of me. And I'm just excited about life today. Life is great. There's so many opportunities out there, and I'm just looking forward to helping others too, learn about their depression and learn about their addiction.
Today's show is about men and depression.
The first time when I was injured, I didn't. It was hard because I was accustomed to doing physical work. I was a mover, and at the time, well, to know about my background is that my family, the men in the family, we was the natural providers, and so we based our prowess on being able to provide, being the head of the house. And now, when a person get to where that they could not work, then that play with your mind, play with your psyche, the way that you was brought up, and consequently, I couldn't do none of the physical work that I used to do anymore. Going through the physical therapist, I didn't like that because then it required me to accept the point that I couldn't do what I normally would do. And then from there, I found myself just spiraling down, 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 down. It hurt. When you recognize that you lost your life, and then you don't know what you're going to do with the rest of your life, and you don't know what kind of abilities you're going to have, and then you just get lost. You really, and it hurts because that's when male pride kicks in then, and that I still got to do something. And as a man, you can't show emotions, you can't show feelings, you can't talk about it because that's not what, quote unquote, a man's supposed to do. And in the culture that I was raised up in, that wasn't an option. You made the best of every situation. So you didn't admit you needed help. You know you needed help, but you would not admit you needed help. You would suffer, then you would cause those around you to suffer. And through that process, it got real bad. Through my church, my pastor, my family, I've learned to see life differently. And to see that wasn't an end, but maybe it was just a beginning and opening up a whole new door. And so now I find out not what I couldn't do anymore, but to help me to see what can I do. And it wasn't easy. It was hard asking for help. It was hard accepting help. It was hard knowing people wanted to help you and you didn't want to be helped. It was like being in a room and somebody slowly sucking all the air out of it. And you know you're going to suffocate, but you almost want that to happen. There's a part of you that really want it to happen, because maybe this will be better than what I got to live through the rest of my life. That's how it was. And that was a hard time, because you can't tell anybody this. I think the other part, you can't tell no one that, because you feel no one will understand this. Who will understand how I feel about this or what's going on? So you keep it all on the inside. And I think that's what, when you internalize it like that, it's worse, because now it begins to eat at you on the inside. But to a sense, you want that to happen. I don't know if it's making it, but you want this to happen, because if this happens far enough, I just lose consciousness of people out around me, and then it just be me in this little shut-off world. But you can't stay there. I take it one day at a time, one step at a time. But if you continue to do this, follow the process, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to feel like you want to give up. You want to surrender. You may even attempt suicide. But don't do the suicide part, because then you're going to lose everything. And I was there too. But because I had a body of people around me who supported me and wouldn't let me give up, and now I believe that I'm evolving to who I was really meant to be. And I would say to anyone who's going through depression, depression is not the end of it. Don't accept that point of being depressed. Yes, you are depressed. Yes, you can have those moments when there's that total darkness, there's no hope, there's no help around, but you can make it. Find a support mechanism. There are people in the community who can help you. There are people in your home, in your church. But reach out, whoever you have to reach out to, find that help. It may be a neighbor, maybe a family member, maybe a friend, but whoever it is that can give you some positive influence, that would begin to turn the road around from depression. And I'm going to tell you, life is so much better on the other side.
What happens to men when they experience a significant life change, such as a job loss, a major illness, or an injury, a loss of a loved one, or other significant event that plunges them into a deep depression?
So in January of 2003, I actually retired from state service. And that's when I wouldn't say the troubles, but that's when some of the heartaches began. Because I had good success on my job. I enjoyed it very much. There was some prestige to it because I was the downstate coordinator for the communications office for a state agency. So every day was different. I got to meet very interesting people. And all of a sudden, that was gone. I wasn't concerned financially because I knew I would have a pension and I knew I would have enough to live on. So I was very fortunate in that sense that that was not a concern. But I found myself in the first 2 weeks just feeling a little angry, and I think the anger was directed at myself because I wasn't sure I'd made the right decision, and I knew there was no turning back. And that edge and that anger started to creep over into, everyday life. I would get angrier at things I saw on the TV. I would get angrier when I read the newspaper about things that seemed stupid to me. And it was a real concern. And I know that part of it was because I thought I might have made a bad decision. And that anger then started to translate into physical issues. My blood pressure went up. I visited the doctor. He had to upgrade my blood pressure medication. He said my blood pressure was too high. I also found myself drinking a little more red wine. My girlfriend and I, she drinks white wine, I drink red wine. And all the years we were together, we pretty much, if we opened a bottle of wine together, we sort of finished it around the same time. And I began to notice that my wine bottle was getting lower than hers, in a dramatic way. And even though I was only, let's say, drinking 2 glasses of wine, I was putting them in larger glasses. So I knew just from working in the field that this is, not a positive. I knew I wasn't eating right. I knew I was drinking a little bit too much red wine. And these are things that are, concern. It was anger directed inward at myself, I think, and that's sort of my definition of depression. So being in the field, I practice what I preach. I decided I'll try therapy. I went to a therapist, left after 2 sessions. And I think I rationalized that I left because it wasn't right for me, but the more I think about it, I think that was part of my anger too. I was convinced I didn't let it work. I really didn't want to. That was part of the anger. That was sort of not destructive behavior, but it wasn't helping me. It wasn't moving me in a positive direction. And so that didn't work, and that became a real concern. The person that was really helpful was my girlfriend, the woman that I live with, and we were talking about my unhappiness, my depression, my anger, and in asking what are the things that make you happy, I kept referring to, well, I was happy when I had my job, but I don't have that anymore, and I can't get it, and I'm the one that took it away from myself. And she pointed out that it wasn't really necessarily the job or the job title that I had, or where my name fit in on an organizational chart. That what I enjoyed about my job was the work that I did, working with different organizations, dealing with the press, dealing with community groups, providing them with support and assistance. And so it sort of became clear that I could still do that as a volunteer. Well, when someone loses a job, especially if it's something that they've been involved with for a long time, it's not just losing a paycheck, or it's not just losing a job title. For some people, it really is losing a way of life. It is losing something that they identified themselves very strongly with. So it's like losing part of themselves and never being able to get it back. But what I would say to somebody is that that may be true, and that job that you lost may be gone forever. But there are other ways to find happiness. Focus yourself, gather yourself together, decide on some kind of a plan of action. And if you can't do that by yourself, and sometimes when you're really upset, you can't think straight. If you're thinking that it doesn't make sense to you, then it is a very good time to take advantage of either the individuals or the groups that are out there that want to help. And all you have to do is want to feel different and want to break the cycle of pain that's going on in your life. And that's all you need to do. If you have that and you can make that first phone call to a number that you might see on this program or someone who might know that, take that first step, and there are other people that can take your hand, and they're not going to fix your life for you. They're not necessarily going to get another job for you, but they can certainly help you put your own business plan, if you want to look at it that way, into operation. But if you're feeling the negative pain that's going through your brain in terms of anger and seemingly mental issues, it's exactly the same thing. It's something that you want to pay attention to and say, I really should talk to somebody about this before it gets worse.
I want to thank you, three gentlemen, for joining me today and for telling your different stories about how you dealt with depression or with a life change and that sort of put you into something people call down in the dumps or a significant depression, and how you all dealt with that in your lives. And I know it's different for every person. But we're here now to just talk a little bit about the topic of men and depression, and that sort of is, the common belief is that depression is a woman's illness, but actually over 6 million men in the United States do experience depression every year. So it is an issue, and we're going to just have a little talk about that.
Okay.
Maybe we'll start with you, Dan, a little bit in terms of a little bit about what you're feeling of how that is in society as a man.
Well, I think really good piece of evidence of that was the process of today. We didn't know each other before we got here. And anytime anyone goes through something that might be a life-changing event, and you hear and you exchange stories with somebody else who has the common denominator of resilience, it just encourages you to keep going in a positive direction as well. And I think we've each had a chance to speak with each other, one-on-one at some point during the day, and I think that's certainly something that I took from it.
So you guys talked about your experiences with depression or after some significant life events.
Yes.
And you wouldn't have normally gotten up together
Never.
over coffee like the gals do? No, huh? You
No.
wouldn't have called up, and you wouldn't have called up your best friend and say, I'm feeling really blue and this is what
No.
happened to me?
No, it would be, how about them Eagles or something, or.
When we come together, it's bravado. It's who can top the other, who got the best story, and to talk about depression is a downer. So we have gotten together at a football game, baseball game, basketball game, at a restaurant. This conversation would never have happened. And even though we could have been thinking about it and wish it could happen, we wouldn't permit it to happen, because that's part of that male ego. That I can't show any weakness, I can't show any kind of vulnerability, because if I do, then I become less than the group that I'm with. So you keep it on, you bury it on the inside. You're still crying out to do it, but you won't do it because you're with the guys. And guys, quote unquote, don't talk like that.
How do we get men maybe to talk about it more or get to treatment earlier? Because if you look at studies, there are actually probably a lot more than those 6 million men that are depressed, but they don't access treatment. So is there something that we could do as a society to shift that, to make it easier for men to talk about or easier for men to go seek treatment? I don't know, Tony, if you have anything, because you said you felt depressed for so long, and it sounds like at least 10 years before you actually got any treatment for your depression. Do you have any sort of insight on that?
Hopefully men out there will see this and they'll see that, we're not weak individuals, and that we are, we're dealing with this in a positive way, and it is an illness, and that it can be overcome. And there shouldn't be, you feel stereotyped that you're a weak individual or you're not a man. It's an illness like any other illness, like cancer, diabetes, and it needs to be addressed. And I think we're making positive steps.
Also, like I say, it's treatable. And once we recognize that it is treatable, then you find out what may work for one may not work for the other. It's maybe having a right support mechanism. Right. Having just one person you can share with, and then in turn, finding help through support. It may be another guy, it may not be another guy. And what I find that work for me may not work. I may not work for them. But we have to find our individual thing that worked for us to bring us out. but recognizing that that we cannot come out on our own, and that you got to let somebody in order to come out.
And I think that these three stories certainly was an example of that happening among three people, and the people that are watching this program are now sharing that circle gets a little bit wider, because anyone who sees this now sort of understands how effective those kinds of things could be. Whether that can be done on a national level with other public access television is very possible. As the message grows, it always starts locally and ends globally, we hope so. We hope that's what comes out of this.
So, Larry, you said something about there's treatment works and there's different kinds of ways to get help and cope. So, can you guys talk a little bit about how you cope, now in your everyday life? Maybe you might start to feel down again, or what keeps you up? What keeps you moving forward in your life these days?
Treatment and intervention isn't going to find you, and if you're sitting still, it's not going to come knocking at your door, and a magic counselor is not going to appear somewhere. So, it starts with the individual in terms of finding that whatever that particular source of encouragement might be. And they're out there, whether it's through a church or whether it's through a counseling center or whether it's through a substance abuse treatment program. There are elements of counseling in all of those places. And I think just number one, knowing that the help is out there, then the responsibility hopefully would come onto the individual to say, I'm going to find it wherever I can.
Larry, you told me once that after your injury, and I think as you were maybe coming out of your depression, I'm not sure, but you started to write, and you said you'd never been a writer before. So tell me a little bit about that as something that helped you cope.
Well, it was something. It came as expression of something that I was feeling, and I wouldn't want to talk about it, so I started writing. And I wrote this. There was this one piece that I wrote that has stayed with me throughout this time. And if I may, it is called Many Minds, One Thought, Many Words, One Voice, Many Workers, One Purpose. And by the pouring out of many individuals into a single cup of purpose, that those many cups of purpose can become a reservoir of hope. Then those who have lost all strength to fight and continue on in life can come and drink and be refreshed and strengthened. Now, I may be a person who planted a seed. You may be the one who prepared the ground to receive that seed. And you may be the one who come and cultivate that ground, to make that seed grow. But it's not who does what, but that we all gave to the best of our ability. And through that, we find help and strength. And that's why writing like that, it helps me a lot. And I must say that one of the main things that really was, again, I go back to my church family. Mm-hmm. And we have a pastor who's an excellent teacher. And through her teaching and her counseling and really about her not giving up on individuals, she always sees the best. And in me, she sees the best. And with taking that word that's given to us, which is called life, and engrafting that and taking it and really making it a part of you. And remember what the word says, that it says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. So keep renewing your mind to new and greater ideas every day. Never looking back, always looking forward, always looking for the best and expecting the best.
They say the best way to learn something is to teach it. And certainly if you have the opportunity, to help someone at a point in time in crisis, that reinforces your own resiliency as well, and it just sort of reinforces the positive direction that you try to stay moving in. And you hope if you get the opportunity to make somebody's life less painful, it's a very wonderful experience for everybody.
Right. Tony, I think you're doing some work in terms of helping other people that in a situation that you were in before. Is that what you're doing nowadays in terms of helping other people that may have had a combination of addictions and mental health issues?
Yes, I currently work for Pivot Ministries, and the men come in strung out on alcohol and drugs just like I was, and I'm able to feel their pain and able to talk life into them and tell them that things are going to get better, that you can overcome this. Mm-hmm. And like Dan said, by giving it away, I get to keep my sobriety, I get to keep my well-being, and it's a great thing to give back. It's a great thing to help those you know, it's just it's a wonderful thing to be able to help those that have traveled down the road that I did, and to give back.
Well, I just wanted to sort of end with one last question to you guys. You know, after going through these different situations related to depression, it sounds like you have a lot to share. And is there just sort of one message that you could give to someone that might be feeling this way, or maybe their wife or daughter or loved ones? What's the one message maybe that each of you would want to say to someone that might be having feelings of depression?
First of all, acknowledge them. You know, acknowledge the pain first that you're feeling, and in acknowledging that would hopefully come the desire to make that pain go away, and it can go away. And the message is that it takes a single step of some kind, whether it's a telephone call or a discussion with a friend or a discussion with a family relative. You know, take one small step to make a change.
I would say to a family member or loved one, don't give up. Even when they deny that they're in depression, do not give up on them. Go out, talk to counselors, talk to doctors, talk to someone, but do your best to give them help, and understand that they're going to deny the help because they're going to deny the illness. But if you can just not give up on them and persevere, and by whatever means necessary, let them know that you're there for them, that you understand that it is a disease, and that it's nothing, that it is a sickness. It is a disease, and that disease are curable, and they can be managed.
Great. Tony?
Plain and simple, it's not their fault. Like Larry just said, and Dan, it's a disease, just like cancer or diabetes, and it is treatable, and it is curable, and I think there's 3 living witnesses to that today.
All right. So don't give up on someone that may be hurting. It's treatable, and really encourage people, men, to go and get help. And let's not try to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, because sometimes that just doesn't seem to work.
Exactly.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories today. With treatment and support, depression can get better, and men can regain their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. And treatment comes not only in the form of medication and therapy, but also in support from community, from family, and friends. If you or a man in your life is feeling irritable, anxious, sad, if they can't sleep, if they're not eating, if they've lost interest in their work or their hobbies, maybe it's time to get some answers. Call 211 for information on where to get help, or on the web at ct.networkofcare.org. Answers are readily available. Start the journey today. Thank you for watching the Caring Network.